In this section, we will be discussing tariffs. A tariff is an electricity plan that belongs to a specific load-serving entity or utility company. Typically, there will be one-to-many tariffs for a load-serving entity, and out of all those tariffs, there will be one which is a default tariff. And that's what most consumers belong to, is to that default plan, especially in the residential market. So what we're going to do in this section here is just want to discuss some of the attributes of a tariff, and then we'll just get into a couple method calls for how to get tariffs and other things like that. So if we look at the tariff object, the key thing to take note of here is this attribute called the master tariff ID. So as tariffs get updated periodically every 3 to 6 months, sometimes more frequently or less frequently, a load-serving entity updates their prices, and so every time that gets updated, we create a new version of this tariff. The master tariff ID will always stay the same. The tariff ID will change from version to version. So what you're going to primarily be interested in is the master tariff ID as you're working ahead. Some of these other attributes tells you what LSC this belongs to. Also, if this is a default tariff or an alternate tariff. Typically a time of use tariff will be an alternate tariff. And the customer class. This is important. This is either residential or general, which means commercial and other things. When this is effective and is active. So as you may run into a case where you'll see several tariffs with the same master tariff ID, but only one of them will be active at any given time. So that's the one which you'll in most cases be interested in. Tariff rates are children of the tariffs, and those contain the prices of the actual tariff. So there could be several rates within one tariff, and then there's a tariff rate band, and it gets, so here's an example here. You have the tariff, you have tariff rates, and you have tariff rate bands, and for example your rate amount here is $9. It's a fixed price for the default residential for Georgia Power. So what I'd like to do next is get down to the operations. So let's say we wanted to get a list of tariffs for LSC, PG&E. So we'll come here. You'll see my URI is REST Public Tariffs. And at the end here, we're just going to say LSC ID equals 734, which we know is Pacific Gas and Electric. And you'll see we come up with 22 tariffs belonging to PG&E. Let's say we're interested in residential tariffs, and we only want the default ones. Now you'll see that this has been whittled down to only 2, and the reason why there is 2 and not 1 is these actually share the same master tariff ID. So one of these, which was this guy up here, was the original version, and you'll see the effective date was from March 1st, 2011, and this has since been updated on June 19th, and so the one that's been updated is now active, is true, whereas this one is false. So that's how you can determine which one to use for your calculations. One final one I want to show you is how to get all the tariffs by a zip code. So if you get zip code here is 94115. These are all the tariffs. Again, it's 22 because there is only one company that operates in 94115, which is Pacific Gas and Electric. And let's say that we know already what tariff ID we're interested in. So we could come here and simply put in a tariff ID right there of 522, and this gives us the metadata about the tariff. Interesting, but maybe not completely interesting. So what would be really interesting is this populate rates equals true, and if we go to the docs really quick, as this tells you here, it populates the rate details. So what this is going to bring in is, sorry to switch back and forth, what this is going to bring in is all of these tariff rates and tariff rate bands which we looked at earlier. It'll bring you seasonality information as well as time of use if that applies to this tariff. And so you really want to, if you're going to do anything with pricing and calculations or anything like that, you always want to do populate rates equals true. Otherwise you just get this. So if we do that, say populate rates equals true, and you'll see we get a lot more data back, and it's still bringing it back, and that's tariffs.